So today we're going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We're now on episode 74 of the series, and in the previous video we saw a ton of events happening, a ton of wars all over the place. So if you haven't seen the last episode, make sure to go check it out before watching this one, of course. And if you guys do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by August 1st. And if we do hit that goal, there will be a special vlog released on the channel. But if we don't reach the goal, unfortunately the vlog likely will not be posted. So if you do want to see that extra content, make sure to support the channel in all the ways you can. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into today's Wixo video. Now, the most notable event in the previous video was China's invasion of Vietnam. It was also revealed that India was funding Vietnam in their defensive war against China and Bangladesh. But unfortunately for the Vietnamese, they were simply overpowered by the invading forces and they lost a ton of land down here in the Strait of Malacca. And obviously, and most notably, South China was released from them. We also saw Bangladesh get a crap ton of land, so these guys are looking pretty large now. But I'm bringing you guys down here for a pretty important reason: the fate of the new Vietnamese country. First of all, we do need to mention though that China is creating a new economic alliance, and this one is aimed at rivaling that of India's economic alliance, which, as we've seen over the past couple of episodes, has very much increased its member count. But a new battle of influence is developing over here in Asia, at least economically for now. And with China and India having issues with each other over historical events, with possible funding of foreign operations within India, or maybe funding of operatives to invade China, there's historical beef between these two. It just hasn't really escalated past funding operatives in the other country or funding other countries to do bad against that other country. Anyway though, as you can see, China's economical alliance will, as of now, consist of these three member states. So themselves, we have the Manchurian country over here, and then we have the recently released country of South China. Now, there is a little bit of a dilemma happening in Vietnam. Technically, China did liberate the people from their useless, worthless government. And that was China's justification for their invasion of Vietnam, to release the people of this bad governance. Now, of course, realistically, that isn't that great of an excuse, but of course, we also saw that there were other goals in this war. We saw South China get released. We saw China gain land. But China's message to Vietnam is pretty simple. We liberated you. Now, how about you go ahead and join our economical alliance so we can further develop your country and maybe also influence your country and get you into our new bloc. But there is a counteroffer on the table, and India is also offering up the same deal. Basically, India is approaching them like, hey, China did liberate you guys from your government, but at the same time, they weren't fully honest. They also took land from you, and then also South China got released. That really wasn't part of the deal, was it? So Vietnam lost a ton of land, and India is offering themselves as the financial savior of Vietnam. We funded you guys, we gave you guys guns, and even India really helped out that rebellion, that militia that popped up. And that militia, as we know, eventually turned into the military turning on Vietnam, and then the rest we saw in the last episode. But the new government has a choice. Do we go with China, who technically liberated us, but also took a bunch of our land, or do we go with India, who helped us overthrow our government as well? China fully believes that Vietnam will join their side. China sees themselves as the good guys. And ultimately, Vietnam's decision is made. They'll end up joining up in India's economic alliance. And this causes a very, very big shift in tensions between India and China, because India has basically just come in here and stolen China's new ally. China really wanted influence over Vietnam. They wanted to get themselves down over here into Southeast Asia, but India has gone ahead and they've done that themselves. Vietnam joins in on their economic alliance, and this is going to be part of a new shifting event happening over here in Asia. China and India no longer are neutral towards each other. They're starting to have these negative tensions with each other. Will it evolve into something else? We'll have to see. But just to let you guys know, this region might be heating up pretty soon. And by pretty soon, I mean now. Because in the early hours of a late day in August, the Coast Guard or the Lime team down here will notify the government and the military that enemy warships are right off their coast. The transmission never goes through though. Their systems are hijacked, their entire communication system is jammed, and eventually we see planes and jets coming off of aircraft carriers in the ocean. Bombs begin to drop on these two islands. The naval ships open fire, and the infrastructure of the island is destroyed. We then see two landings being made, one on the northern island up here, which ends in a success, and another one down here on the southern island, which also ends in equal success. The Lime team is beaten back by this foreign invader, and these islands will be annexed by said foreign invader. And if you guys don't know who it is already, this, my friend, is the color of none other than the American country. Likely sailing across the Pacific, going through the Panama Canal, maybe harboring in Hawaii before setting out on the voyage, the American Navy had a very long distance operation, and this is likely the longest naval operation in Wixo history thus far. Much like the United States in real life, this American Navy is capable of doing long-distance operations. I don't want to say it's to the level of the United States in real life because the US's entire naval doctrine is being able to fight long-distance naval wars, but it has close capabilities to that. Not 100%, not perfect, because this operation actually ended up with a lot more people dead than America wanted. But anyway, they annexed these two islands, and this will cause trouble in the Assembly of Nations. Most notably, we have a couple countries in the Security Council coming out and speaking out against America's action. These countries include Tibet, China, India, and South Africa. No other countries, though, really open their mouths. Now, of course, Red Australia will say something, Papua New Guinea will likely say something. All of the nations down here in Southeast Asia likely will have something to say about this, maybe even these other Pacific islands. But basically, these countries are worried about imperialism. It seems that the world has kind of promised itself that imperialism is dead. However, we have countries like America and China going out and just invading their weaker neighbors and not really getting any real consequence for doing so. Also, why did America invade this island? Well, that's a question that will be answered at a much later time, but it's also a question I'm going to leave to you guys in the comments. But shortly after America's annexation of the island, we have the Assembly of Nations having their first real General Assembly meeting. Now, I say first real General Assembly meeting because this one is probably the most important and most world-changing so far. A resolution is passed by the Assembly which will ban nuclear bombs from being produced and used. Nuclear power is still allowed. You can still use nuclear power plants, but you are not allowed to produce nuclear bombs. They have been banned. We saw nuclear bombs be used in World War III and World War IV. Millions of people died. The world is done with nuclear bombs. They were already very anti-nuclear before World War IV, but now after its conclusion, the world is just done with nuclear bombs. It's mostly due to the fact that the radiation effects of these nukes is just killing a lot of people. Even modernly, there are a lot of people dying from radiation poisoning from the previous world wars. Well, this legislation will make its way to the Security Council, who kind of act as the executive branch of the Assembly of Nations, sort of. And none of the 8 members of the Security Council will be vetoing it, meaning that these nations are willingly giving up their nuclear weapons. America's supply is disposed of and deleted, so is Mexico's. West Africa, I don't believe, should have had any nukes because they used them on Ethiopia. But the Dutch Republic also happily gives up their nukes. And then same thing with China, they unloaded all theirs into Ethiopia in World War IV, so they didn't have any to begin with. But the world has officially been denuclearized. There are no longer any capable nuclear bombs on this map that can be launched or used. And this is an interesting development for humanity because in our world, as we know, nuclear bombs are used as deterrents. They aren't really used for their actual capabilities, although we've seen that happen before, especially in World War II. We've seen threats used with nuclear bombs, but we've never actually seen nuclear warfare, and that's mostly because nukes are just used for deterrence. In this world, that obviously hasn't worked. Nuclear deterrence is not a real thing. Russia and the old empire in World War III blew each other up, and then China and West Africa mag dumped Ethiopia in World War IV. And this is an idea that is very, very supported by the weaker countries of the world. We have Africa and a lot of support for this. We even have the Mesopotamian countries in heavy support for this. The Russian countries are very in support of this. The Ethiopian state, which is currently probably a radiated field of just mutant mesh. If there's any people here, they would probably also be very much in support of this, and that's because they saw direct involvement in the nuclear war. But the nuclear bombs are gone. Well, that enters in a new question. Giving up weapons of mass destruction, are there going to be a replacement for nukes? Are they going to develop a new kind of bomb that is just as deadly as nukes, just without the adverse effects of radiation, so on and so forth? But anyway, now moving on to our next topic, we have to pay a visit to a country in Europe, and that country was one of the many victors in World War IV, the country of Rome. I mentioned this at an earlier time, but Rome is broke. They are in a very, very bad situation. They're in debt to half the world and they don't have the money to pay it off. And this economic disparity is becoming very, very clear as poor economic conditions are ridden across this country. Their currency has dropped in value, unemployment is up, inflation is up, and life is not good in Rome. The government is going through a crisis and the ideology of communism appears to be on its way out. Change is wanted by the people. Now, the voices of change are most loud in Rome, but there are also echoes heard in Poland and other communist countries across the world, which very well could lead to change. Not in this video though, we're not focusing on that today. I just want to give you guys a quick little reminder about the state of Rome. Also, for clarification, I do want to mention the Unitarians real quick. In the last episode, I said that these guys all spoke Dutch. That is very wrong. You guys were quick to correct me in the comments on that. I don't know how I got them mixed up, but you're right. these guys do not speak Dutch. It's a mixture of a bunch of Western European languages like French, and I do believe the Iberians had a colony up here as well. So there's two different language groups here at play. But in all actuality, that kind of reinforces my point of Unitarianism, leaving behind your heritage, your identity, and, striving to progress humanity to a new stage. But zooming out from there and heading back down here to Oceania, we have another event taking place, and this one is a pretty big one. Now, notably, neither of these countries are members of the Assembly of Nations. Neither of them are interested in joining after the whole, Democratic coalition in World War IV. Red Australia especially doesn't trust it, but neither does Blue Australia, who saw some of their communist allies fight and lose to some of these democracies. But that also means that neither of them have any kind of binding agreement with the Assembly of Nations, and there won't be any kind of resolutions to stop them fighting each other. And what that means is that the fighting from World War IV will continue. Yet another major regional war has surfaced following the conclusion of World War IV, the War of Absolutes. Vietnam was the first major conflict, but now we have the Battle of Australia unfolding, and the fascist powers in Red Australia are sending their armies straight into the major cities of Blue Australia. The communists will cry out for help, calling on their bloc to help them. That includes Rome, Poland, even these guys up here, the random communist country right here, even Central America. They're calling out to the communist bloc, but none of them will answer the call, and that is due to fear. The fascist bloc is still strong. All of South America at this point is basically fascist. And they don't want to escalate anything into another global war. They don't want another radical ideology war between the fascists or the communists. And the Assembly of Nations will do all that it can to stop the fascists from joining or stop the communists from joining. They don't want this to escalate, and they'll basically leave Blue Australia to die as the fascist powers overrun them. Slowly but surely, the major cities of Australia are taken by the armies of the Red Team, and eventually this thing will be prone to capitulation, and they will have to surrender over to the Red Team. And absolutely no mercy is shown in the peace treaty. Blue Australia will be fully annexed by their fascist neighbors to the east, and the communist bloc shrinks ever more. I do think now would also be a good time to mention that I finally updated the stability and technology map. So here is the updated stability map with the current borders of the world. You can see that the world is fairly, mildly stable. There's a lot of yellow countries, which just means you're kind of right in the middle of stable and unstable. The darkest green colors you see are the most stable, and the red colors you see are the most unstable, and then from there it's just simple color progression. As for the technology map, here's a quick little peek at that. You can see the most developed nations in the world are the darkest blue, while the most undeveloped nations in the world are this lighter teal color here. Notably, you'll see that America and China are the two most technologically advanced countries in the world, but there's also Ireland, the Dutch Republic, the two Mesopotamian countries, and India. Heading on over here to Europe, the Russian warlord is making yet another move, wanting to continue to unite the Russian people back under one country and using popularism to convince his people that his actions are indeed justified. Tanks will quickly start to roll into the orange country over here, which is going to be known as, or very briefly be known as, the St. Petersburg country, because the Russian team here will simply overrun their forces. The orange team will not get any foreign aid here. The Assembly of Nations, much like the UN in real life, will fail to prevent this war, and this whole country will fall to the Russians. In the peace treaty, it is full annexation, and here is our new map of Eastern Europe. But for a quick second here, I want to give you guys a little bit of an announcement / insight into the end of the series, which is coming up probably around January on episode 100. And I want to emphasize how important the finale of this series is to not only me, but to the channel, to the community, to pretty much everything that we built in the past year, or when it releases, almost 2 years. And it was kind of hard for me to make the decision to, officially announce that I'm going to be ending the series. I've already made the announcement. If you haven't heard already, though, the series will be ending at 100 episodes, which is just about 25 episodes from now. Talking about the finale, it's something that I have been taking some time to think about. I want to think about how I'm going to end the series, and I'm not going to tell you guys how we're going to do it just yet, but the way that we're going to do it, I think you guys are going to love. And just to kind of, highlight how important this is to us, I want to announce that I am going to be hiring I'm going to be hiring people to help me with this ending. We're going to be probably producing our own music, and there might be some voice actors, maybe some animation. I'm not too sure about the animation, but there might be voice actors. So I just want to put that out there, maybe get you guys a little bit excited for the ending when it comes here. But with that announcement out of the way, let's go ahead and get to our next event, which is taking place in Central Africa. Looking at the stability map here, we can see that these 4 nations here are not doing so great. They are very unstable, and looking at the technology map, we can see that their technology level also isn't the greatest. Ideologically, they're all kind of all over the place, but for the most part, they are democracies, these three right here, and that's who we're going to be talking about next. Now, this country right here was split up following World War IV. It was part of the treaty where these guys would be split and they would be getting two new countries. Now, that plan has backfired. Simply enough, there just isn't enough people here for these countries to be realistically functioning. And the issue is so bad that the Assembly of Nations will bring it up and they will attempt to pass a resolution to fix these issues. Now, of course, there is a slight issue being that these two countries are not in the Assembly of Nations. So in order to fix themselves and resolve and, save their people, they will make the decision to quickly join the Assembly of Nations. But that is more so of a facilitator process. This next little event will be facilitated by the Assembly of Nations. This is the first time that an organization or an international organization will help with the affairs of, three different countries and, help fix their problems. So this is a good look for the AN. What they do here is they come in and they make some amends to the peace treaty, basically saying that these countries, they are allowed to unite, and they're allowed to unite because otherwise the people will be suffering and it just isn't functionally going to work. So they have to unite together. Luckily, all three of these countries are pretty similar. There's not a lot of differences between them. So when the time comes to unite, there is no big issue. The people will welcome this with open arms. And these three nations will unite together to form the Central African country. The idea of a central community where these countries have better resources, a much larger population, and an easier to control economy. Essentially, this slaps a band-aid over the issue before, which was sparse population and just economic disparity. Their capital city will be located in the northeastern capital city of the previous blue team, which, could be a cause of concern, but for the most part, this is a friendly endeavor here. There isn't much issue with it. When it comes to stability, of course, having three countries in red and then uniting together isn't going to fix the whole stability issue right away. Now, the AN will come in here and try to mediate this a little bit, which will eventually lead to it going from a red country to an orange country over the first couple of years of its existence, but still not a very stable country. There's room for improvement, which they will be striving to fix in the future. But for now, here is our updated map of Central Africa. And moving not so far away over here to West Africa, there is also a little bit of turmoil inside. Now, these guys aren't necessarily unstable, it's just that their government is going through some change right now. We all know that the former leader of West Africa resigned in disgrace, or that's what he officially called it, but more so resigned because of the pressure of what he did got to him and he just felt it would be best for him to step aside. But the new leader that preceded him is basically saying that this isn't working. This whole fascism thing just isn't working anymore. West Africa at this point is turning. They're changing and they are becoming a democratic country. The leader, just like the person he succeeded, will resign and say, hey, we're done. We are flipping this country and we are becoming a democracy. We're going to hold elections. We're going to allow for people to be elected, and we're not going to have this fascism thing anymore. We're not going to allow communism either because, of course, the fascists aren't going to let communists just come into power, but we're going to allow for, just some standard moderate democratic candidates to come in. So in a shocking event, we have one of the most powerful fascist nations, if not one of the most powerful nations, period, flipping ideology and going into democracy. This will kind of send ripples across the world. Radical ideology isn't necessarily dead, but it has been pushed back to its corner. And with West Africa shifting, this could definitely mean that these other large nations could also feel the ripple effects. Anyway, that is actually going to do it for today's video on what if civilization started over. I do have a feeling that this episode is pretty short, and I do apologize for that, but I am going on vacation tomorrow, and I still have to edit this video, and then I also have to edit Monday's video. So I've had some pretty bad time management lately. I'm super behind on everything. I haven't even packed for the trip yet, and I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm recording this at 11 p.m., so I gotta get the ball rolling here. I hate making a shorter episode towards the end of the series because there's so much content that I do want to cover, but I also need some more time to think about how I want to approach this next era. So, going on vacation, getting a clear mind and coming back to it might help out with that. So I'm hoping that that's exactly what happens here. But like I was saying in previous videos, Wixo is speeding up. The pacing is speeding up because we are getting to some pretty important events, which are going to be setting the stage for the finale of the series. But anyway, with all that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video. Once again, we're trying to get to 200,000 subscribers by August 1st. Is that goal likely? Probably not, but I have faith. I believe in you guys. Of course, I need to be posting the good quality videos, but at the same time, you guys can help out by leaving a like on the video, subscribing to the channel if you're new. That's the most important thing. But also, if you're already subscribed, feel free to share the channel with anyone who you might think is interested. Even if they're not interested, just go, maybe go tell them to subscribe anyway. Get us to that goal. I really do want to post that vlog, but like I said, if we don't hit it by August 1st, and it's likely not going to happen, I tend to fold when I make promises like this, like, you know, if we hit this goal by such and such, I'll do this, but if we don't hit that goal, then I won't do it. And then usually I'll do it anyway, but I think for this one, I'm serious. If we don't hit it by August 1st, I'm not going to do it. So just something to keep in mind. It's not a threat. I promise you, it's not a threat. Anyway, once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. And of course, thank you to all our super fans. This includes Chillturn Mapping, Omega the YouTuber, Illy Goated, Nevada Garbage Trucks, Vista Mapper, Xander Pro Productions, Geo1010 Gamer, Knighthood7353, and Golden Ball Mapping, 101 Rotanami T, King Cheese, Australian Geo Guy, Zerminator, Icy Static FN, CTG on YT, Eagsco, Euroball, Augusto, A Norwegian, RS, Gail Martinez, Zaylance, What in the World? Freezioi, Laser Taze, Pablo Sigma Cat, Deathstrider X, Hammertoad45, and DW Cool Dude. Once again, thank you guys.